Hebrews 11:6. And without faith it is impossible to please him. For whoever would draw near to God must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who seek him. We have been looking at the questions of what is your spiritual dream and what is preventing you from achieving that dream. Since the beginning of the year, we have kind of been focusing a little bit on the latter, what's preventing you from reaching that spiritual dream or accomplishing it. It is quite possible, when you think about it, that there's a lot of things that keep you from achieving it. We've been looking at things that show how to achieve it, and so if you're looking at just the opposite of it, those are the things that are preventing it. Now, I don't know about you, but even in the ancient times, people had spiritual dreams. The Israelites, they had a spiritual dream, and they were not able to achieve that dream for a long time. So let's look at another aspect of what is possibly preventing us from achieving that dream. Life. Life is filled with definable moments, right? Moments when we must make harsh choices, brave overwhelming obstacles, and conquer new horizons. Your daughter and grandson, or granddaughter and grandson, they're facing things in life that they're going to have to overcome. And when they realize it, they'll come back. They will come back because there's only one way, and we know that way. There are major crossings of life. And today we're going to look at a spiritual crossing. We're going to look at one of the most significant events in the life of the nation of Israel, and that was when they crossed the Jordan into the Promised Land. Joshua is the new leader. Moses has died, and it is now up to Joshua to lead the people into the land that God had given to them. So let's look at Joshua 3, verses 1 through 4 to begin with. Then Joshua rose early in the morning, and they set out from Shittim. And they came to the Jordan, he and all the people of Israel, and lodged there before they passed over. At the end of 3 days, the officers went through the camp and commanded the people, as soon as you see the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord your God being carried by the Levitical priest, then you shall set out from your place and follow it. Yet there shall be a distance between you and it, about 2,000 cubits in length. Do not come near it, in order that you may know the way that you shall go, for you have not passed this way before. There are a few things that we kind of need to realize before we continue on with this. It has taken the nation of Israel 40 years. 40 years of wandering in the desert to get to this very point. And it's all because of their sin of the generation that was before them. And all the stumbling and grumbling and complaining that they did. For the unbelief that they tried to go into the land the first time is, oh, we can't do it. The people are too strong. And they basically forgot God. And they had to wait for all of the current parents to die off before they could go. The principle to understand that allows us to experience the journey of life is that God allows that to happen. We experience these journeys in life so that we are prepared for what is to come ahead. God took Israel on an incredible journey to show them that He alone was God, and He alone would provide for their needs. Now, what has He done for them up to this point? Well, gosh, He's fed them. He's provided water. Their clothes haven't worn out. Their shoes haven't worn out. In 40 years, talk about a style that never goes dead. I really thought I'd get a really good laugh at that one, but I guess not. He gave them everything that they needed. He gave them victory over their enemies, even though they were nomads. So now is the time for them to cross over. But God gave them very specific things that they had to do before they could. And in the process of. The first was consecrate yourself. Joshua 3 verse 5. Then Joshua said to the people, consecrate yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you. The term consecrate literally means separated to or belonging to God. It was vitally important that those who were preparing to enter the promised land that God had for them lay behind everything that would interfere in their being distinctly God's. God is holy, right? Anything that is to be set apart for Him or to His honor must be holy. Leviticus 19:2, speak to all the congregation of the people of Israel and say to them, you shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. The idea of holiness is simply to be spiritually pure. But before the people could enter the promised land, they had to make sure that they were spiritually pure. What does this mean for us? Well, God calls us, as His followers today, to be spiritually pure. And He calls us to a life free from the entrapments of the world and the sinful lifestyle of those around us. 2 Timothy 2:19. But God's firm foundation stands, bearing this seal. The Lord knows those who are His, and let everyone who names the name of the Lord depart from iniquity. Excuse me. The first step in us being the people of God that He has called us to be is to leave behind the sin of the world and strive for purity and holiness. To be people that God desires and the church God uses, we must make sure that we are pursuing God more than we are pursuing sin. 2 Timothy 2:22. So flee youthful passions and pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace, along with those who call on the Lord from a pure heart. Unfortunately, what most people want is a nice little God to be able to pull out in the time of crisis. Other than that, we don't want Him. They want to say, oh, life is so grand, and I'll look at all the stuff that I've got going for me, and all of a sudden something bad happens. Oh, I got to pull out God out of the box. God, help me. And when He helps you, put you back in the box. Oh. We are not, they want that God in the box to pull out in a crisis, but not a real and honest God to worship and serve. They don't want that. We try to hide our hearts and hope that God will just let us get by. Yep, that's right. I got you my little emergency pouch. Break in case of emergency. Here comes God. If we want to be what God has called us to be and designed for us to be, we must set ourselves apart for His honor and to His glory. Do you desire holiness before God? Is your life set apart to be used for His honor and glory? If not, today is the day where you can become consecrated for Him. The second specific thing God gave to them to do was, hey, consecrate yourselves and then step in the water. Joshua 3, verses 6 through 13. And Joshua said to the priests, take up the ark of the covenant and pass on before the people. So they took up the ark of the covenant and went before the people. And the Lord said to Joshua, today I will begin to exalt you in the sight of all Israel, and that they may know that as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. And as for you, command the priest who bear the ark of the covenant, when you come to the brink of the waters of the Jordan, you shall stand still in the Jordan. And Joshua said to the people of Israel, come here and listen to the words of the Lord your God. And Joshua said, here is how you shall know that the living God is among you, that He will without fail drive out from before you the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Hivites, the Perizzites, the Girgashites, and the Amorites and the Jebusites. Behold, the ark of the covenant of the Lord of all of the earth is passing over before you into the Jordan. Now therefore take 12 men from the tribes of Israel, and each tribe of a man, and when the soles of his feet of the priests bearing the ark of the Lord of all the earth shall rest in the waters of the Jordan. The waters of the Jordan shall be cut off from flowing, and the waters coming down from above shall stand in a heap. Whew. Not only is there a river between them and the promised land, but it's the rainy season. The river is at flood stage. It's a rushing torrent without a bridge. And there are people on the other side wanting to kill them. Because they know, they've heard about the Lord their God and what he did to the Egyptians. They know that they've been wandering around for 40 years in the desert. They know that they are big and powerful. And they've got a God that's going to fight for them. God had promised to stop the flow of the water in that river once they step into it. Now, I don't know about you, but I would like him to stop it before I put my foot in that river. Because I'm not real thrilled with having muddy waters that I can't see the bottom of. Of course, even if I could see the bottom of some of these things, think of those really clear lakes around the world, then you look at it and think, oh, that's only 3 feet deep, and it's like hundreds of feet deep. Talk about taking major plunges. But I would like to have that water stop before I stuck my foot in a rushing set of water. There are some interesting points here. First, God does not eliminate the obstacle. He doesn't say, we're going to take care of it, it'll go away. He takes his people through it. He takes them through it. We often want God to simply just get rid of the difficulties and the obstacles that we face in our lives. But God wants us to trust him enough to walk through them even when we don't want to do it. We can trust that the water will stop. Why? Because God said it would. God is the ultimate truth. He has never lied nor deceived anybody. When he says it, you can count on it happening. So what is the raging river in your life? Do you trust God enough to push back the water to allow you to cross? Second, God is the living God. God is not some far away, impersonal deity. He is the alive, intimate God of all creation. David recognized the difference between the living God of Israel and the idols of all the other nations. Psalm 115, verses 3 through 7. Our God is in the heavens. He does all that he pleases. Their idols are silver and gold, the work of human hands. They have mouths, but they do not speak. They have eyes, but they do not see. They have ears, but they do not hear, and noses, but do not smell. They have hands, but do not feel. But they have feet, but they do not walk, and they do not make a sound in their throat. God does. The God that we serve does. We often put things into our lives that become gods for us. Position, power, influence, work, finances, possessions, and all of these things lobby for the affections of our attention. The bottom line is that God alone is God. Anything else that we try to fill our lives with, take his place, is a cheap imitation. Are you willing to step in the water of life with God? What fear is holding you back from following God? What is it that keeps you tied to the bank instead of standing in the middle of the river? The third thing that God specified that he wants them to do is cross on dry ground. I want you to be consecrated. I want you to step in the water and then cross on dry ground. Joshua 3, verses 14 through 17. So when the people set out from their tents to pass over the Jordan with the priest bearing the Ark of the Covenant before all the people, and as soon as the bearing of the Ark had come as far as the Jordan, and the feet of the priest bearing the Ark were dipped in the brink of the water, now the Jordan overflows all of its banks throughout the time of harvest. The waters coming down from above stood and rose up in a heap far away at Adam, the city that is beside Zarethan, and those flowing down toward the sea of Arabah, the salt sea, were completely cut off, and the people passed over opposite Jericho. Now the priest bearing the ark of the covenant of the Lord stood firmly on dry ground in the midst of the Jordan, and all Israel was passing over on dry ground until all the nation finished passing over the Jordan. When the priests and the people were obedient to God, God was faithful. He was faithful. The river stopped flowing upstream from the ark. It stood in a heap, and it was right around the city of Adam. And that city was known in that area for having landslides periodically that would stop that river. Now the question must be asked, was this an incredible coincidence or a divine act of God? Even if it was an incredible coincidence, 10 to 1 says it was a divine act of God. Because He's in control of everything. Ooh, that's pretty simplistic. God did exactly what He promised when the people did what He required of them. God's desire for His people is obedience to His command. The river only stopped flowing when the people set foot in that torrent. Psalm 40, verse 2. He drew me up from the pit of destruction and out of the miry bog, and set my feet upon a rock, making my steps secure. God's desire is to free us from the mire of life. God doesn't want you bogged down by life. He wants you on solid ground. We all want to achieve that spiritual dream. We really do. I know that we do. And there's a handful of questions that are coming up that might possibly be some of the reasons why we don't achieve it. So keep that in mind. The first one is, where are you today? Where are you today? Are you ready to cross over from the life that you have been living to the life that God intended you to live? Have you set yourself apart to live for Christ? James 4, 7 and 8. Submit yourselves therefore to God. Resist the devil and he will flee from you. Draw near to God and He will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. Are you willing to be obedient to God? God has called for us to be obedient even when we don't understand. Are you sitting on the riverbank waiting for that water to recede? Or are you trusting God and stepping into a territory that you don't understand? Isaiah 1:19. If you are willing and obedient, you shall eat the good of the land. Are you standing on solid ground? Life is filled with the things that mire us down. But God wants us to live beyond the junk to experience the best that He has for our lives. God's desire is for you to live wholly for Him and not mired down in the distractions of life and the schemes of the devil. Ephesians 6:11. So what is it that we always say? Put on the whole armor of God that you may be able to stand against the schemes of that devil. Those questions are things that we really kind of need to answer. Today, what is it that you need God to do for you? How do you need to set yourself apart for Him? How do you need to be obedient to what He has called you to do? What areas do you need to be free of the mires so that you can stand on the solid rock of Jesus? See, we all can achieve that spiritual dream. Just like the Israelites of ancient time before they crossed, and even after they crossed. We still need to focus mostly on God, and we still need to live for Him. And that's how you really achieve that spiritual dream. Work on achieving that dream this week. Let's go to prayer. Oh, Heavenly